Tuesday afternoon, I ran down to see Mark at A1 to see if he had a solution to our stripped out carburetor stud problem. The cold side on Billy's turbo kit is rigid. There's absolutely no flexibility. So, if everything isn't perfect, it pulls on the carburetor stud and pulls the stud out of the center of the carburetor. And since it's already been fixed 2 or 3 times,
This is. It's not. We already.
Mark found some thread repair kits he's had for 20 years and has never sold any of them. The reason he's never sold any is because they take a bastard-sized tap that nobody has. Luckily, we found a metric tap that's just big enough to cover the whole size I need and just small enough that we don't have to drill out the main body of the carburetor. So while Kenny's busy working on changing slicks out for the S10, I sit down at the workbench and attempt to repair this carburetor. The air cleaner stud was originally 5/16 of an inch. It's now all the way out to 7/16 of an inch and stripped at that. So we are definitely running out of options on ways to repair this main body. Now our plan was to go out and make another test hit on this truck today. However, Mother Nature had other plans. Rains quickly moved in as soon as we backed the truck out of the garage, and that's going to do it for today as far as any street testing. But me, Billy, and Tommy were all pretty hungry at this point, and we decided just to shove the S10 back in the shop, hop in the Suburban, and head down to Buckeye Lake to get a bite to eat. So we all three went down to Pizza Cottage, got a pizza, and discussed our options for what we plan to do this weekend, and then we called it a day. I came back to the shop and worked on some of my monster trucks for a little while, and then went to bed to try and get a little sleep. We were hoping that the weather would let up by Wednesday morning so we could make a test hit. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So what can we do today? Well, we've got a rear end we need to get put in this Malibu. So we back the S10 out in the rain, bring the rear end and the Malibu back in the shop, and get busy. Jeremy got started pulling the wheels and tires off the back of the Malibu, while Kenny started wiping down the rear end, masking up the brakes, and then applying a couple coats of fast-drying black enamel. Kenny set a box fan up there beside it to help dry the paint. I just hope that by the time that Kenny and Jeremy get the old rear end out, that the paint on the new rear end's dry enough to handle it. It didn't take very long for those two to get the rear end out of the car. And I'm going to set this thing out back and hang on to it for now, because you never know what we're going to get into in the future. Well, what now?
I gotta go to Chumpy's.
What for?
Kick him in the nuts.
What for?
I don't know. I'm sure there's something I need to kick him in the nuts for.
Well, go get me some gear oil and a couple more trouble lights while you're down there, will you?
All right.
So about the time Jeremy was ready to make a parts run, Billy and Uncle Rob show up, and it didn't take long for them to stir up some trouble. Who you calling?
I'm calling Sunshine.
Mr.
AKA
Sunshine.
Brendan, aka Banana Hammock.
Billy and Rob are trying to set up a grudge race between me and Brendan in his full-size stick-shift Chevy pickup. It has a 6-liter with a blower, and Brendan's just recently got it running pretty good.
I feel like it's somewhat competitive at least.
And Billy and Rob feel like they can peer pressure him into taking this race.
What's up, dog? What's up? Nothing. What are you doing? You working?
I was, but I think I'm buddy you're bringing right now.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Hey.
The little pizza shop by our shop.
Oh, I got you. Hey, what did your truck run last time you had it out? In the 8?
7:30.
7:30. Okay.
Sounds like a good grudge race for the Malibu.
Yeah, we're trying to set up a grudge race with the Malibu.
I was waiting for it. I kind of wanted to too. It would be kind of cool.
Oh.
I think it'd be cool.
Okay, okay. Did you get your 9-inch in yet?
No, I'm going to pay it off when I get paid on Friday, and I should have it. I'll at least have the house and the axle and the brakes by next week whenever my brother comes.
Okay.
So I'm going to have it in.
You gonna come out to Uncaged?
Yeah, you're gonna come to Uncaged? You coming to Trails for Uncaged?
Oh, okay, yeah. I was going to talk to Tommy to see if I can stay in his house again. That's why I'll come out on Friday and stay.
Okay. Are you bringing your truck?
I'm going to bring it, but I'm not going to race it.
Okay. So we'll have to wait until you get your 9-inch in before we can have this look Grudge race.
No, he can get messed up on the street with a stock rear end in it.
Bill said you can get messed up on the street with a stock rear end.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, he's got a nice sound, don't he?
Yeah, we're putting it in right now, actually.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be scared, Brendan.
All right, there's gonna be some streetcar on streetcar crime. It sounds like.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I don't care what happens. It'd be a really cool content.
Right. Cool beaners. Well, that's what we wanted. We were trying to figure out what your truck ran. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a pretty good race.
Okay. All right, we'll consider it locked in, MFer.
All right.
All right.
All right, see ya.
I see it.
So there it is. Brendan wants some action.
He does want some action.
What do you think, Junior?
I think you're gonna leave on him for sure. Being that he's stick shift and he's got a lot more going on in there, and he probably is gonna mile an hour pretty decent. I think he'll probably stop your pull, especially when you get into high gear with that second to third drop.
Yeah, that second to third gear drop in a 700 R4 does suck pretty
You're gonna
bad.
take off on him pretty hard, but I think he
predicting-
might even start coming back.
Yeah.
But he's not gonna come around you.
I'm predicting this race is gonna be like when KP's car blew up. Like it's gonna be like that. You know what I mean? Like I think it's just gonna be like that. Your dad's got the old school wisdom. He's gonna get out on him.
It should be pretty good. I mean, if his car went 730, 740, and the best year's been like 720, 730s, it should be a damn good race.
Because Brendan's got that 6-speed. So
6-speed.
oh yeah, his truck's a 6-speed. So
6.
yeah, it's got a T56 in it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's gonna be one of those. You're going into second, you're 2-3, and he's just probably gonna be going into maybe fourth, right at the 2-3 probably with his car.
You'll be on a radial.
Yeah.
He'll probably be on a slick. Might even out.
Might be good.
I'm gonna blast him.
So once we lock in this grudge race with Brendan's truck, I send Jeremy down to go see Mark to pick up some supplies and some gear oil. And when Jeremy pulls in, he finds Mark sitting out back working on his delivery van.
You know what I think this is?
Huh?
You know what I think it is?
What?
It's a lack of maintenance.
Are you serious?
Mark's van's definitely got some problems with the cooling system, for sure.
Blew it up.
You know what your first problem is?
Well, that blew over.
Now I was hoping that Jeremy would come right back with what we needed from the store.
This is the perfect time to go turf someone's yard while I'm driving around in Trumpy's billboard.
But instead, somehow he talks Mark into letting him test drive his van to see if he can troubleshoot the problem with the cooling system. So he starts driving this thing all over Buckeye Lake.
Look, it's a racetrack. Woo!
This was definitely not one of Mark's better decisions.
We'll make him worry for a minute. He'll think I'm broke down.
Evidently, Jeremy decided to go get ice cream while he's joyriding.
Help to deliver your parts if you'd maintain your vehicle, Chumpy. Lack of maintenance.
Lack of maintenance. That's what it's boiled down to, huh?
That's exactly what it boiled down to.
While Jeremy's down there joyriding all over Buckeye Lake trying to tear up Mark's delivery van, the rest of us got busy trying to get this rear end put up in the back of the car, because I really need this lift open back up so that we can work on other projects later this week. And to add insult to injury, I ended up having to go back down to Mark's myself to pick up some stuff I needed to hook up the new disc brakes, of course, right before quitting time.
Putting the pressure on me again.
Somehow I always show up 15 minutes before the store is supposed to close, looking for $2 parts made out of unobtainium. But as usual, Mark got me hooked up with everything I needed with a couple minutes to spare. So now the pressure's on us to get this car finished so I can get it out and do a test drive while the sun's still up. So Kenny goes ahead and changes oil in the engine while the rest of us are finishing up, and we measure the drive shaft to check and make sure it's long enough. And unbelievably, the drive shaft needs to be lengthened an inch or so, but it's going to be good enough for a test drive tonight. So Jeremy and I move on to the final part of this project, bleeding the brakes. Kenny got the honors of pumping the brake pedal while the car is up on the lift. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, we had a good solid brake pedal
and it was time to put the wheels and tires back on the back of the car. The new rear end has 5/8 wheel studs, and it looks gangster with the RC Comp beadlock wheels. Once we had the brakes bled and the wheels and tires back on, all we needed to do was adjust the upper control arms to center the rear end underneath the car. Once we had that done, it was time to set the car back down on the ground, fire it up, and go for a test drive. The old rear end always had just a little bit of gear noise in it due to the fact that the pinion is so small and a 7.5-inch ring gear with a 4:10 gear ratio. However, there was one small issue. Due to the axle bracing across the back of the 9-inch housing and the increase in tube diameter, the UMI anti-roll bar that I had on the back of the car will no longer work with the 9-inch Ford. So I plan to call TRZ tomorrow morning and order in an anti-roll bar kit to keep the G-body shuffle to a bare minimum. But not having an anti-roll bar on the car isn't going to stop me from making a test drive down the road this evening. So me and June Pup hit the road. Now thankfully, the 9-inch makes zero gear noise. The ring and pinion in this thing is completely silent. So as you can imagine, I am really happy with this new rear axle setup in the Malibu. All right, welcome back everybody. So we got the rear end put in the Malibu today. I'm really happy about that because I was just getting started tuning this thing. We were just getting good, you know what I mean? We had it on pump gas and we got it down into like 1240s, 1230 range. And then I put E85 on it, took it back down to Cincy Street nights, and that's the night I ran into the final again, but lost because the rear end broke. And the rear end, the 7.5-inch 10 bolt, it was struggling to handle the additional torque this small block Chevy made on E85. So I didn't even have to hit it with nitrous to break the rear end. It was on its last leg, just on motor. And the last time I took it out and raced it last weekend, I wasn't too concerned about it because it was almost 90 degrees. It was extremely humid. So I knew the power would be, or at least I thought it would be down on power. But I was really shocked. The car, even though it was hot and humid and the air was terrible, still went 775 to the 8th. So that's still 720, 730, or I'm sorry, 1220s. I really messed that up. The 1220s in the quarter. So that's not bad. It's not where I would like it to be, but it's close. I'd like for the car to run 12.0s in the heat on motor, but you know, I have to remember, it doesn't have exactly the best set of cylinder heads on it. They're Airflow Research 195s. They're not a bad head, but they're not as good as like a Brodix Track 1 or something like that, I don't think. So I'm pretty excited because now I can start getting hateful with this thing. Not only can I start tuning it on motor and not worry about breaking the rear end, but we can also turn nitrous on now right off the hit. And I've never been able to do that. The meanest I've ever gotten with this thing was, I think I delayed the nitrous hit 0.2 of a second and then put it on a 1.5 second ramp, and that's just for 150 shots. So needless to say, I was being pretty gentle with it. Now I do know that I grabbed it on a button down at Edgewater one night, right off the hit, and it didn't break anything, and it did hook. And it went a 149 60 foot. It actually pulled the front wheels off the ground when it left. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. But it only did that once without breaking the rear end. So I know it's capable of going in the 140 60 foots. I also know it's capable of going about 118, 119 miles an hour, progressing 150 shot in.
So if you do the math, 149 60 foot, 148 60 foot, or faster, possibly faster, and 120 some mile an hour, you're looking at a 1090, 1080 pass. And I think that's completely doable with this car. I just couldn't do it with a 7.5 inch rear end. And I actually broke a stock axle once too. I forgot about that. So I do still have the rear end. I'm going to put it out back, and I'm going to keep it because you never know you don't know from one day to the next around here what's going to happen. And if I just so happen to come across another Malibu someplace that we need a posi for, I'll have a 410 posi rear end, and I can take it into Lucor, or maybe just have Jeremy fix it here. But we noticed when we took it out today that the pinion bearings were a little bit loose, and it was starting to leak a little bit of gear oil around the pinion seal. And I have to think back, but after Jeremy said that, I realized that I kind of thought the last time I hopped on 70 and went to jegs in it, I wound it up to like 80 miles an hour. I was in a little bit of a hurry, and I thought I could feel the drive shaft vibrate just a little. And another thing I found out today, and unbelievably, you would think a 9-inch Ford being a bigger rear end, the drive shaft would need to be shortened, and that's not the case. The drive shaft is actually needing to be lengthened about 1 inch. And this is the original drive shaft, and I realized today it still has the original U-joints in it. And they're not in the best of shape. They're pretty old. I mean, it's only got 29,000 original miles, but they're the original U-joints from the factory. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe just go down to Super Duty Truck Parts in Newark, who does all our drive shaft work, and maybe just have them build me an entirely new drive shaft with a little bit larger diameter tubing, because this is, like I said, the stock V6 drive shaft. So other than that, and I need to call TRZ in the morning or tomorrow at some point and get a anti-roll bar kit ordered for it, because due to the increase in tubing diameter and the brace that goes across the back of this rear end housing, I was not able to use my UMI anti-roll bar kit that I had on the stock rear end. So we unbolted that entire kit and took it all off as one unit when we pulled the rear end out. And like I said, I'm going to keep that around here just in case I come across another G-body. In other news, the event that we had intended to go to this weekend, Billy and I were going to go to Limpy's race. And I'm not even sure, I don't even know the name of that track right off the top of my head. But regardless, it got canceled due to the weather forecast. So I'm not sure that Billy and I will be racing anywhere this weekend. Well, I don't know that Billy will, but I probably will. If the weather's decent here, I will probably take the Malibu someplace and get into a little shenanigans with that. So tomorrow, I think the plan is for Junior and I to go up and see Uncle Bob and possibly start taking the big block apart. Big shout out to Mike Henson out in Oklahoma, who had the exact crankshaft that Billy needed in stock, and he shipped it to us, and it should be here tomorrow. So we're kind of waiting on the shipment to come in for that crankshaft. If it shows up, then we'll have it. I mean, we don't have to have it tomorrow. We don't have to have it to take the engine apart, but it would be nice to be able to take it up there, and that way we can mic the crank, and Bob can measure the mains and see where we're at that way, you know, as far as the main clearance. But I'm pretty certain that that block's probably going to need to be line bored, at the very least line honed. But we'll get into that more in depth probably tomorrow when we start taking that engine apart. Now, I did want to mention tonight, I've seen in the comments repeatedly people asking, why didn't we have Uncle Bob help us build the engine to begin with? And it seems like everybody's looking for dirt, but the fact of the matter is, when this big block Chevy project kind of just started to take off for Billy's Nova, Bob at that time had COVID twice. He got it twice. His wife also had some health issues going on. So between Bob's wife not feeling very well and Bob having COVID twice, Bob got very, 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 very behind up here at the machine shop, and I think he's still running behind. If you guys remember the little built to the max small block, I took it up to Uncle Bob to have him work on that, and it's still up there. And the reason it's still up there is because I haven't pushed Bob to work on it because it's not that important to me. And I know that Bob had a lot of work for his really good customers up there. I mean, we're a good customer too, don't get me wrong, but it's not important for me. And there's a lot of people that are relying on Uncle Bob for their weekend bracket motors or truck pulling motors or mud running motors, or, you know, a lot of people are doing points events, points series at their local tracks for whatever they're doing. And I don't feel like it's that important for me to have that engine back, because honestly, I mean, even if I had it back, I don't have enough time to really do much with it right now. I know a lot of people have been asking about the 327 for the 55, and I'm waiting for a camshaft from Iski, and I think today's Wednesday, or yesterday was Wednesday. I talked to Nolan Jamora, and he said that the camshaft should have shipped out to me on Wednesday. So that would be yesterday now. So technically this is Thursday morning. So I should have that camshaft pretty soon. Outside of the camshaft, the 327 for the 55 Chevy is pretty much ready to go. I've got everything. Bob's got the heads done. They're in bags over here. They're all ready to go. I've already got a set of Iski hydraulic roller lifters for it. Nolan sent those to me months ago because I had anticipated this happening. But what I didn't anticipate was Iski to step up and say, hey, we'd like for you to put an Iski roller camshaft in that. So Uncle Terry had me a comp cam set out at Jegs, and I told him to go ahead and put it back on the shelf. I'm going to wait for an Iski. So waiting on a camshaft. As soon as I get the camshaft for the 55's engine, I can go ahead and start putting a 327 together. I really want to put power brakes and power steering on that car. So let me know in the comments if you've had a Tri-5 and you've had some experience with a good power steering kit. I would like to put a long water pump on the 55 and use a standard power steering pump. The 55 Chevys that came factory with power steering, the power steering pump was built onto the back of the generator, and I don't want to do that. I'm not getting into that. And I'll get into that later on. I'll explain why, but I would really like to eventually put air conditioning on the 55 Chevy as well. So that's kind of the reason why I'm trying to go towards the long water pump and putting a newer model power steering pump on the car. So that's all coming up in the near future. There's no end to the amount of work we've got to do around here. The old Nova's back here. We still got all the front end parts. We need to get started on that here pretty soon. Luckily, Jeremy got moved into his new house, and he's settled in now, I think, for the most part. He's been in and out of here for about the last week and a half, dealing with moving and putting up dog fence and everything else. So he hasn't been around as much, and Kenny's been moving. So Kenny hasn't been around as much. So it's been kind of hectic around here. Don't really know when and where I'm going to have help. So, but things are hopefully going to start getting back to normal here pretty soon. And we'll be able to start cranking out a lot more videos, a lot more content with more regularity. So that's going to about do it for tonight, guys. I will see you all maybe Friday. I don't know. I know me and Billy are going up to Bob's tomorrow to work on the big block. So I'm not sure if Billy's planning on filming that for his channel. If he doesn't, I'll go ahead and film it for mine. It doesn't matter to me. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'll probably have a video up maybe Friday. All right? Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching.